This is like a year late. I'm sorry about that. Let's not waste any more time and get into it. So Kirby's Dreamland was a big success for Nintendo and HAL Laboratories, and they now had a successful franchise on their hands. So they decided to move Kirby onto the big screen with Kirby's Adventure for the NES in 1993. Which was a bit odd considering that the Super Nintendo was out by 1991. I'm not sure what really drove them to make it for the past console, but okay. Well, it really didn't end up mattering as the game would do incredibly well for Nintendo, but can I recommend it to you guys nowadays? Only one way to find out, so let's get into it. So in the world of Dreamland, Kirby can't get sleep one night because he can't dream. Which, when your homeland is Dreamland, that's kind of a problem. Apparently, he can't dream because the Fountain of Dreams, where dreams apparently come from, King Deity is taking a bath in it. And the Star Rod, the source of the fountain's power, was split up into several pieces, but most importantly, Deity was taking a bath in it. So Kirby must retrieve the shards of the Star Rod, put it back in place, stop King Deity from cleaning himself, and get some sleep. The best reward of all. Okay, the story is just as non-existent as it was in the first game, and it doesn't try to be anything grand. It's just a means for an adventure, which works out fine. Though there are some new elements that try to add something more. Not much, but a little. First with the new character Meta Knight, who keeps trying to attack you, yet help you at the same time. So you're not quite sure what side he's on, kind of like Proto Man from Mega Man 3. And when you fight him and break his mask, you find out he's another Kirby. And hey, for the NES, stuff like that was a big deal. And then after you fight Deity, he tries to stop Kirby from putting the Star Rod back into place, but when Kirby does, it unleashes a creature known as Nightmare. So in a way, Deity was actually a good guy? It doesn't add much, but it's there and it's kind of interesting for an NES title. Kirby's Adventure was released late into the NES lifecycle, and as such, HAL clearly got as much out of the system as they could. The game graphically looks fantastic, there's so much detail in the sprites, and they move so fluidly. I also love all the little expressions that they get out, like Deity's worry face, Kirby when he fails the bomb minigame, and Quick Draw how the guns get more and more ridiculous as it goes on, and of course at the beginning of each level where the game once again gives you a cute little animation relating to the world. They're all such great details and go a long way to the game's charm. Plus there are some really impressive set pieces that they have, such as this tower here, that actually looks really good for the NES. Each of the levels also have distinct personalities and styles that make them stand out. I think in particular for me the two best worlds with theming are the last two worlds, Orange Ocean and Rainbow Resort. Oh yeah, speaking of which, all the level names are alliterative. Also, if you take the first letter of each world and put them backwards, you get Roy G. Biv, aka the colors of the rainbow. Odd thing to put in, but it's there. And I know I'm going on details for a while, but another thing that I love every time Kirby gets a power, he gets a little drawing on the bottom that changes with each power he gets, and they're all adorable. Probably my favorite drawing-wise is Stone. Kirby clearly didn't know what was coming. And then we have the music, which of course is fantastic. And no track suffers from the sound chip, so they all sound great on the ears. My personal favorites are Green Fields, Grassy Bluff, Forest Trail, and Ice Cream Island, which got a pretty sick remix on Smash 4's Dreamland 64 stage. Most of these songs would become mainstays in the series, and they sound just as good in their original debut. The only problems I have against the presentation are two, and one of them is actually only on the original NES release, which also goes for the eShop and NES Mini as well. There's this giant bar on the left side of the screen that's there for the entire game, and it's kind of distracting in different scenes. Thankfully, in Dream Collection, they removed that entirely. But the thing Dream Collection didn't fix was the slowdown. When there's a lot of action happening on screen, especially when you use abilities such as Spark or Freeze, the game starts to slow down quite a bit. It's not a game breaker by any means, but can be a little distracting, not gonna lie. But besides that, the presentation, especially for NES standards, is fantastic. But is the gameplay enough to back it up? So there have been quite a few big changes to the formula from the first game that would end up becoming standards for the series. First off, Kirby is able to dash now, speeding up the flow of the game. And with the bigger screen, you kind of need something like that, so no complaints here. He also has a slide that you can do by pressing down an attack where Kirby goes through almost anything in the game, and it's a nice form of mobility and an attack. But the big new addition that was added here that would define Kirby from this point on is copy abilities. When you inhale an enemy, if you press down, you swallow the enemy whole. Some don't give you anything, but if an enemy has a special power, you can take that power for yourself. Though you do lose it if you get hit, but most of the time you can swallow to start back up and gain the ability again. There are over 20 abilities that you can use, which include all of these. I'm not wasting your time saying them all. But you can hop between abilities whenever you like to keep things changing. In terms of how the levels are set up, it's a little different this time around. There's 7 worlds that Kirby must travel through, each with a handful of levels that are simple point A to B adventures, with the end of the level being represented by a big shiny door, with a bonus game at the end to potentially earn extra lives. Now, while the levels are mostly point A to B and very straightforward, there are a few with a bit of a bonus incentive. If the door is flashing after you completed a level, that means you missed a switch hidden in that level. These tend to be pretty hidden and are found by finding a door or solving a puzzle having the right power. By getting these switches and completing levels, you can unlock a warp room to quickly hop to a previous world, a museum to get a power for free, the arena where you can fight a mini-boss and get their power and a full health refill, and then finally 3 mini-games used to score extra lives. You have the series classic Quick Draw where you try to press a button as quick as you can after the draw happens, Egg Catcher where you need to collect all the eggs in your mouth and not catch a single bomb, because eating a bomb is very bad news to say the least. And finally the Crane game, kinda like the ones you see in small arcades, but they don't grease the hook this time so it's actually winnable. Dave and Buster's machine, you know what you did. I'm on to you. Anyways, with the minigames, you can only do them once. Afterwards, the door closes and you can't play the game again until you find it in the next world. Once all those stages are completed, you get to fight the boss of that world. Wispy Woods, Kracko, and Deity all return from Dreamland, and the new bosses do their job just fine. Not too challenging, but they are fun. And when you beat the game, you get Extra Mode, where you can't save, but unlike Dreamland, the game remains the same, so no massive difficulty spike this time. And I'm grateful for that. You also unlock Boss Versus, where you get to fight every boss again with only 1 life bar. All I can say is good luck. And that's it for the gameplay of Kirby's Adventure. So what in Kirby's first console adventure is there to like? So Kirby's Dreamland has a lot of things that I do like, and you can really tell where the series found its identity. To get the most important thing out of the way, I love the ability system so much. It adds much more to the gameplay by being brand new attacks for Kirby, but it also creates a great pacing for the game too. See, by being able to switch your powers on the fly, you create this sense of action always changing, which keeps you engaged. It's fun to experiment with them all, but if I ever see a tornado, I'm going for that and holding it as long as I can. Mainly because it's my favorite power in the series. You're invincible while using it and can tear through everything in the game. Except blocks. Blocks are your worst enemy. Next, I love the presentation as they really pushed what the NES could produce, and I think it still holds up very well and I can listen to the music anytime, anywhere. I also like how the game is rewarding you a lot of the time for finding the secrets out, which are actually pretty well hidden honestly, and I give them credit for putting them in clever spots that make you think outside the box. Water coming out of a black hole in the waterfall, that might end up being a doorway. Stuff like that I appreciate. And with rewards such as the museums and arenas, I always look forward to finding the switches to get the rewards. Plus, I do enjoy the mini-games to play to get extra lives. All of them are fun and engaging, but I think if I had to rank them from least favorite to the best, they are Quick Draw, Crane Game, and Egg Catcher. Egg Catcher to this day can still give me a challenge, and I always try to get it done 100%. And trust me, trying not to miss a single egg is easier said than done. And finally, I love the little touches and stuff like the animations, the little movies at the beginning of each level, and probably the coolest part of the game, a level that is a recreation of Kirby's Dreamland complete in black and white. That was awesome. And they even have the moon secret here as well intact. That made me happy to see. But sadly, there are a few issues I need to let you know about. There are sadly a few negatives I need to bring up when it comes to Kirby's Adventure. Not a lot, but it is worth going over. And they pretty much all revolve around the same thing, finding secrets. I think some of them are either a little too hidden or require something really annoying to do in order to get it. I immediately think of Orange Ocean and the ship level. Trust me, from what you're seeing here, how would you know these are secret rooms that lead to switches? It's just a little much in certain areas, but you know, I'd rather have that over some of the more annoying ones. Such as the ones where you need to get a power from a completely different level and keep it for the entirety of that level in order to get the secret that's simply flicking a switch or something like that at the end. And once again, in Orange Ocean, in the level that starts with a water section, if you get hit, you can't get that power back and have to repeat the whole process. It kind of goes against the fast-paced nature of switching powers on the fly and makes it feel more like a chore than anything. And there's one room in particular that always gives me a lot of trouble every time I try to 100% the game. This cannon room in, you guessed it, Orange Ocean. Can you tell which one is my least favorite world? Anyway, you need to light this cannon and quickly run up the hill, fall down and get into the cannon before it launches. Problem is, it's very precise and you have to deal with enemies on your path trying to run and this is probably the hardest part of the game right here and I never look forward to doing this part. But to be honest, these are only issues if you're going for 100%, which isn't required at all. And even then, the game is really solid with just a standard playthrough, so consider this just a nitpick, honestly. Kirby's Adventure is a fun time. The powers keep things diverse and interesting, the game has a great presentation and such an abundance of charm that make it fun to go back to time and time again. I actually do find myself replaying it to blow off steam quite a bit. However, going for 100% may be a bit too out of the way for some people, and I don't blame you if you don't go for all of it. But the main game has so much going for it that playing it still leads to a very enjoyable experience. So yeah, Adventure is definitely better than Dreamland, and pretty much defined the Kirby formula. It's an adventure that's definitely worthy of going on. So that was Kirby's Adventure. If you're interested, I recommend you grab yourself the Kirby Stream Collection on Wii if you want this and the other games I'll be covering for this marathon. But if you want the standalone game, you can get it on the NES Virtual Console or NES Mini, if you can actually find one. But there are two other versions of the game that are worth going over. First one up is the 3DS re-release of the game in the 3DS Classics line. That you can snag off of the eShop for around $8. First off, I don't use the 3D feature on the system much, but man, this game looks really good with it. Everything pops out even more and it looks great. The bar is also removed once again on this version. But the major improvement over the original is that the slowdown issue has been completely removed, as it was built on a new engine. So as such, the game runs way better. Though I do have one complaint. I think the screen size is a little small. I mean, I'm playing this on a normal 3DS in order to capture the footage, but I think the screen is kinda small at points. But that's really the only negative I have, and it's a fantastic port of the original classic. Yes, I say original classic because we have one more pit stop. Kirby's Nightmare and Dream... Actually, hold on 1 second, I gotta do this.
Kirby! Nightmare and Dreamland! Kirby! Nightmare and Dreamland! Beating up the bad guys and taking...
Sorry about that, I just love that commercial. Anyway, where was I? Kirby's Nightmare and Dreamland, released on the Gameboy Advance in 2002, is a remake of the NES Classic, and... whoa boy, there's a lot to go over with this one. First thing you can tell from the box art is that Kirby has an angry face. This would actually become a trend where Kirby would be happy in Japan, but angry in countries like America. I mean, it does lead to some cool box art, but it's kind of odd to think about. I don't know why Americans need to think that a pink puffball is all hardcore now, but okay. Anyway, on to the game itself. First off, the graphics have gotten a tremendous upgrade. Way more detail has been added to the environment, and Kirby now has his hats from Superstar, and everything just pops out even more. They also made the game noticeably faster, so you can actually speed through the game really fast now, and as a Kirby fan, that can actually be really fun to do. But the most important change to this version is the inclusion of Meta Nightmare. Once you complete both the main game and extra mode, you unlock the ability to do a no-save run of the game as Meta Knight. Think of it kind of like you have access to Sword Kirby at all times. It's a great inclusion, and stuff like this is great for making it stand out from the original. But I won't lie, there are some things that kind of bug me with this version of the game. One would be the sprites, mainly the expressions. They don't give off as much of a range of emotions as the NES game. Mainly in that scene with Deity at the end, it's not even a contest. The NES version just gets that across more effectively. I also found it kind of odd that they removed Meta Knight giving you the invincibility candy, and now it's just kind of there. I know that's nitpicking, but it was a nice detail that's missing from this version. Plus, Kirby's kick now stops after hitting an enemy and doesn't go all the way through them like the NES game. This is the norm for the series, but I kinda missed that from the original NES game. I'm also not a big fan of the minigames in this version. The only one returning is Quick Draw, which is now a samurai theme, which I do like a lot more than— Oh, one frame reaction, what's up? Sorry, I just thought that was kind of cool when recording, Anyway. You have Star Ride, which is okay, but all you do is really just hold down A and let it go when there are spikes. You could argue the same for Egg Catcher, but that one I think required a bit more skill and timing, and the concept was more engaging, as it stays kind of dull in this one and it's so easy to win. And the final one is basically Hot Potato with bombs, because that's a smart idea. But I don't know if it's the Wii U Virtual Console, but I swear this minigame in particular seems to have some kind of input lag. I know I'm hitting the button, but Kirby decides to not do anything, which gets kind of annoying. They also made a lot of the exits easier to spot. And you know, I'm usually for that, but I think some parts make it a little too easy and makes the thrill of finding the secrets a lot less exciting. I think the NES version did a lot better job in hiding them. Plus, there are things that just didn't make the cut that I'm sad about, like the tower. Now all you do is just wait for the fog to go away instead of circling the building. If the NES could do it, there's no excuse why the GBA couldn't do it. Meta Nightmare is also sadly not my cup of tea because of Meta Knight's control. He has a lot of startup on his attacks, and because of that, you're gonna end up taking a lot of unnecessary hits, which build up quick and make me stop pretty early on. Plus, the Dreamland level is nowhere near as cool as it was in the NES version, as it isn't completely black and white besides Kirby, kind of breaking the illusion. So in the end, I do find myself preferring the NES version, but Nightmare and Dreamland is still a pretty good version of the game, and honestly, you're fine playing either one. Or play both of them and find out which version of the game you like better. So we're 2 games in so far, 2 systems, both incredibly successful. So what would be Kirby's next console adventure? Well, it wouldn't actually be for a while. He would be heading back to the Game Boy with Kirby's Dreamland 2, and he'll be bringing a few friends along for that. So, I better make some room for the company, so I'll see you then.